For over a century, Madison Square Garden has played host to some of the biggest sporting events in the world. So when MMA was legalized in New York in 2016, it didn't take long for the UFC to follow suit. Today we look at some of the greatest matches to grace the arena over the past 7 years. The title fights and all-action wars that made the Garden Eden for MMA fans. Welcome to the INC, and these are the 10 greatest Madison Square Garden fights. At number 10, Derrick Lewis vs. Blagoy Ivanov. 12 months after his failed UFC title bid, Derrick Lewis returned to MSG to face Blagoy Ivanov at UFC 244. The match was a classic striker versus grappler battle, with Ivanov controlling the early stages with his wrestling before Lewis fired back with wild right hands, the Bulgarian showing the granite chin which became his trademark throughout his career. The rest of the fight played out in similar fashion, Ivanov nearly securing a second-round Americana and Lewis landing power shots whenever the fight returned to the feet. After 15 minutes of momentum shifts, Lewis was deemed to have landed the more impactful strikes, giving him the judge's nod by split decision. It would prove the biggest moment of Ivanov's tenure, the fighter being released in 2023 after a 3-5 record with the promotion. Number 9. Kamaru Usman vs. Colby Covington 2. Kamaru Usman's grudge match with Colby Covington led to one of the best fights of 2019, so it was no surprise when the UFC booked the two in a rematch at UFC 268. Much like their first bout, the fight played out primarily on the feet, but Usman's improved striking saw him take the early advantage, including dropping Covington twice in a one-sided second round. Covington, however, was determined to redeem his loss from 2 years earlier. Chaos worked his way back into the fight in the third and took control of the fourth with his jab, uppercuts, and a body kick which appeared to hurt the champion. All the momentum shifted to the challenger entering the final round. Covington's late flurry proved to be in vain, as Usman steadied the ship in the final round and ended the rivalry with a clear decision victory. The win secured Usman's place as one of the welterweight division's greatest ever fighters, while Covington was further rewarded by, sitting out and collecting however many title shots he wanted. Number 8. George St. Pierre vs. Michael Bisping. When George St. Pierre retired in 2013, he said it would take something special to get him to return to the cage, and the MMA legend got his wish when he faced Michael Bisping for the middleweight title. GSP showed little sign of a 4-year absence, establishing his trademark jab early and landing the fight's first takedown at the end of the opening round, only for Bisping to up his volume in the second and later neutralize GSP's takedowns by landing elbows in the Canadian's guard. With GSP appearing to slow after his long layoff, the win seemed to be in the sails of the champion, only for GSP to drop the Brit late in the round before securing a rear-naked choke, in the process joining a pantheon of two-weight UFC champions.
George St. Pierre has done it! He is the new UFC middleweight champion!
GSP retired from the sport again shortly after, but not before adding a final bow to his Hall of Fame career. Number 7. Matt Frevola vs. Lando Vannata. MSG always brings out the best in its local fighters, and Lando Vannata found that out firsthand when he faced Matt Frevola at UFC 230. Vannata landed the fight's first meaningful strike by dropping Frevola with a head kick, only for Huntington's finest to recover and land his own power shots throughout the first round, nearly finishing the bout after locking the Jackson Wink fighter in a guillotine attempt. Vannata responded emphatically, dropping Frevola again in the second and maintaining the pressure as the Cerro Longo prospect struggled to regain his marbles. Vannata showing the flashiness and aggression that saw him win performance bonuses in 4 of his first 5 UFC bouts. While the pace slowed in the final round, there was enough to keep the New York crowd on the edge of their seats. A unanimous draw proving a fair result in a match neither man deserved to lose. Number 6. TJ Dillashaw vs. Cody Garbrandt. Cody Garbrandt's feud with TJ Dillashaw became one of the biggest MMA stories of 2017, so there was much intrigue when the two squared off for the UFC bantamweight title. Garbrandt was making his first defense since his upset win over Dominic Cruz, and immediately set his sights on former champ Dillashaw, the latest chapter of an ongoing war stemming from Dillashaw leaving his alpha male training camp 2 years earlier. Garbrandt started with the same swagger that won him the belt 10 months earlier, stunning Dillashaw with a combination that nearly took him off of his feet before dropping Dillashaw as the first round horn sounded. Many fans believed the end was nigh as a wobbling Dillashaw returned to his corner. Dillashaw was advised by his corner to get more creative for the second round, and heeded their advice by mixing low kicks with his strikes before dropping Garbrandt with a head kick midway through the round. It proved the fight's turning point as Dillashaw crowned off a dramatic comeback midway through the second.
Whoa! TJ Dillashaw has done it! Dillashaw now a two-time UFC Bantamweight champion!
The fight wouldn't be the last chapter of the Garbrandt-Dillashaw rivalry, as the two men squared off in an eagerly anticipated rematch 10 months later, Dillashaw winning the fight by dominant fashion late in the first round. Number 5. Shane Bergos vs. Billy Quarantillo. On any other card, Shane Bergos' war with Billy Quarantillo would be hailed as a fight of the year contender. Bergos was looking to bounce back after his bizarre loss to Edson Barbosa 6 months prior, and faced a stern test in Quarantillo, who was looking to extend his UFC run to 5 wins in his past 6 fights. Quarantillo applied his trademark pressure game from the start, landing several uppercuts in the pocket but remaining wary of Bergos' power, something which came to fruition as the Hurricane dropped Billy Q with a counter right during a late round flurry. The second round played out in similar fashion, Quarantillo's forward pressure being neutralized by Bergos' mix of power shots and low kicks, Bergos securing the round by rocking Quarantillo and coming close to finishing the fight against the fence. Even with the damage mounting, Quarantillo continued to look for takedowns and trade strikes with Bergos until the final horn. But it was the Bronx fighter that took home the honors in a fight that broke the record for the most strikes landed in UFC featherweight history. Number 4. Dustin Poirier vs. Michael Chandler. Dustin Poirier and Michael Chandler had come unstuck in their lightweight title bids to Charles Oliveira, and both men had realized they needed to go through one another if they wanted to get another shot at the belt. Chandler started the fight in trademark quick fashion, overwhelming Poirier with explosive combos against the fence, only for Poirier to survive the onslaught and seemingly turn the tide by dropping Chandler late in the opening round. Iron Mike Chandler, however, regained the initiative during a grappling-heavy second, holding a dominant position for much of the round with a combination of submission attempts and ground and pound. The former Bellator man doing everything he could to gain an advantage in the fight. Poirier, though, has always been trademarked for his resilience, and after reversing Chandler's takedown attempt, he finished his fading opponent by rear naked choke, the Diamond's first submission win since 2012. The win added another mark to Poirier's claim as one of the UFC's greatest ever lightweights, while Chandler moved into pole position for a potential super fight with Conor McGregor. So I guess there really wasn't a loser in this fight after all. Number 3. Tyron Woodley vs. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Tyron Woodley's fights alternated between all-action wars and frustrating point fights. Luckily, the former was on display when he faced Stephen Wonderboy Thompson at UFC 205. After a first round dominated by Woodley's wrestling, Thompson used his trademark karate style to neutralize Woodley over the next 2 rounds. Woodley, however, knew a big right hand would be enough to change the complexion of the fight, and in the middle stages of the 4th round, the champion did just that. Woodley dropped Thompson a second time shortly after before locking in a tight guillotine, only for Thompson to somehow survive the hold and even mount a late rally to finish the round. Thompson would get the upper hand of a nervy final round as the fight went to a judge's decision. The bout declared a majority draw, with Woodley's 4th round onslaught helping him retain his title. Woodley and Thompson would lock horns again in an eagerly anticipated rematch 4 months later. You know Woodley's Jekyll and Hyde style I mentioned at the start? Told ya.
So 5 minutes down, only 6 significant strikes landed combined.
Number 2. Jacare Souza vs. Chris Weidman. Chris Weidman's first trip to MSG saw him lose in brutal fashion to Yoel Romero, and New York's finest looked to make amends when he faced Jacare Souza at UFC 230. Despite both men being known for their grappling, Jacare and Weidman chose to stand and trade for the entirety of the bout, Weidman controlling the pace with stiff jabs, and Jacare swinging knees and uppercuts whenever he managed to enter the pocket. Jacare's success in the first round saw him turn the second into an all-action brawl. The combination of big overhands and body shots taking a toll on Weidman's conditioning. With both men's strikes getting heavier and the pace accelerating, it was clear something had to give between the two, leading to an explosive outcome in the late third round.
And now back to the body goes Souza! Is down!
The win would be Jacare's last in the UFC. The fighter called time on his MMA career in 2021 after an 18-year association with the sport. Weidman, meanwhile, is still chasing that elusive Big Apple triumph. Number 1. Justin Gaethje versus Michael Chandler. Justin Gaethje and Michael Chandler were known as two of the UFC's most exciting fighters. So when a match between the two was booked for UFC 268, fans anticipated fireworks. The fight was all action from the get-go, with both men throwing with vicious intent, before Chandler drew first blood by rocking Gaethje twice in the first round, and then Gaethje slowed the Iron Man's momentum with a big uppercut. The fight descending into the all-out brawl many had anticipated. It was another Gaethje uppercut that changed the fight's momentum, dropping Chandler in the early stages of the second before hammering his opponent with ground and pound. While Chandler was able to return to his feet, much of his first-round firepower and potency had diminished, although the former Bellator king kept Gaethje on his toes with hard-hitting flurries. Both men came close to finishing one another in a pulsating final round, but Gaethje's superior conditioning saw him claim the unanimous decision and cement his place as one of the sport's most exciting fighters. The match was widely considered the greatest fight of 2021, and one worthy of the legacy that comes with fighting in Madison Square Garden. Well, that's our list. How about you? Do you agree or disagree with any of the rankings? Would you put another fight on the top 10? Let us know in the comments below. This is the INC. Please like, share, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a video.